The top third of the Reds lineup showed its brilliance and the blueprint for successful games to come in Monday night's win over the Rangers.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Reds. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Stephen Offenbaker. He's Jeff Carr. We're lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans. We love baseball. We've been talking about the Reds in podcast form for a combined 14 years now. We love talking Reds baseball with you. On today's show, we'll tell you one thing that the Reds lineup needs to do to keep the momentum going tonight against Nathan Eovaldi. That's coming up later on. We're going to break down the second most dominant debut by a Reds pitcher pretty much ever here in just a few minutes. But we are going to begin with the renaissance of Reds hitting that happened on Monday night. That's all coming up on today's Locked On Reds that is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets back when your first $5 bet wins. All right, Jeff, it was cold at the ballpark, but the bats were red hot. This lineup, we teased this, and we talked about this in the live show yesterday, that as go TJ Friedl, Matt McLain, and Elly De La Cruz, the Reds go. And boy, did they go.
They filled up the base paths, and they all scored a bunch. I mean, an amazing night for the top third of the Reds lineup. Multiple runs scored. TJ Friedl scored twice. Elly De La Cruz scored 4 times. Matt McLain scored 4 times. Elly De La Cruz 4 for 5. He actually was a triple shy of the cycle. And in the final at bat that he could have hit a triple, he just decided to smack the batter's eye with his second home run in the game. It was a dominant night for him in particular, but the entire top third of the lineup. I mean, when you put together those 3 guys, that's 8 hits, that's 10 runs scored by those 3, TJ Friedl, Matt McLain, Elly De La Cruz. And as our buddy Tim said on the postcast last night, Terry Francona went back to that top third, and it paid off big.
Boy, that Elly De La Cruz stat line, in addition to the 4 for 5, the 2 home runs, 7 RBIs in this thing, and back to running again. Got the first stolen base of the season, caused an error on that play. The throw got away when they tried to get him. He ends up advancing to third. Elly causing chaos in the batter's box, causing chaos on the base pass. That's the formula for a winning Reds team.
And he ultimately provided the difference. I know that, eventually the Rangers got to 3 runs. That was kind of when the Reds brought in Sam Moll, brought in Brent Suter. We'll talk about the pitching here in a little bit. But really, the difference was that 3-run homer in the second inning, and then the Reds just kept pouring on so many great at-bats in this game. The only guy that didn't get a hit was the guy that got hit by a pitch, and Encarnacion-Strand, again, on the right wrist, again, by the Texas Rangers. Do they have something in for I think he's from Texas. Like, I don't know what it is, but he looked okay. He did come. He went to first base. He came out of the game whenever the Reds went to the defensive half, but he looked all right. We'll see if he's in the lineup here tonight. But I mean, overall, just a fantastic night for this lineup. A team that in their first series of the season looked like it was going to take a while for them to kind of have this sort of a night. I'm not saying that 14 runs is going to be what you're going to expect from these guys, but to see them explode with all these runs is the kind of thing that you need to see just for them to get right for the rest of the way.
Yeah, I said this in our short from the ballpark last night, that sometimes a team just needs a game like this. Yeah. Everybody was hitting. Everybody was doing the things they needed to do. Everybody looked comfortable. And on a night that you really expected people to struggle. It was
told you before the game there weren't going to be any home runs.
Right.
I was so wrong.
It was windy. It was cold. But the Reds delivered. And I'll tell you what I'm excited about. We talk about Elly, and these are the kind of games he's capable of. We know that. We know he can have these kind of, take over the moment games. But Matt McLain he is here to get some things done. He is all the way back. If anybody had any remaining questions about what Matt McLain was going to be for this team, he's one off the league lead in home runs right now. Right. And he's not using a torpedo bat last time I checked.
No,
he's one back of Aaron Judge. So for Matt McLain to show up and in the 2 spot provide that kind of power, that kind of on base, Elly's going to be getting a lot of RBIs this year. That's really what this is going to come down to.
He really is, and it's just going to be that much more difficult for pitchers to pitch to those 2 guys, because you figure if you're an opposing pitcher facing the Reds, you're going to throw to the guy that's in front of Elly, you're going to throw to the guy that's behind Elly, and you're not going to throw to Elly. But now you got to figure out how you're navigating the top 3rd, top 4 of the Reds lineup, because even Gavin Lux hit a double in this one, had an RBI double in the first inning. Ultimately, the kind of night that you love to see. You love to see the hits fall, the homers fall, all this kind of things for the Redlegs. And you mentioned McLain's homers, the 3 homers in 3 games. I find it intriguing because a guy like him, where there's still plenty of people around the league that speculate as to his power and how much of it he really has, it's really hard to deny it whenever he's hitting home runs. And it's not the type of air at Great American Ballpark where the ball is supposed to carry.
Well, he's got 3 right now, and I can think of at least 2 that come to mind that would have been home runs.
No
in
doubters.
June. They would have been. He would be like that'd be up to 5 home runs or so, because there were 2 that died on the warning track that I'm convinced would have been out in June and July at Great American Ballpark. I'll tell you something else that was interesting from this game, Jeff. You know, we used to talk about Will Benson being the best number 9 hitter in baseball.
Yeah.
And, those were the good old days. But maybe the Reds have found their new best number 9 hitter in baseball, because Jose Trevino down in the 9 spot today, 2 for 4, and scored 2 runs. He scored both times he was on base. Obviously, that's not going to be the standard catcher production there at the 9 hole, but he was not going to be left behind in that offensive onslaught that was going on.
Went opposite field for both of his hits as well, so he was seeing the ball well enough that he could let it get deeper into the zone and he could push it the other way. And that was kind of the thing as well. We heard Yid talking on the Reds postgame show on 700 WLW that was something that he saw from Elly, and that's really something that Terry Francona saw from Elly that he loved, and that the 2 home runs were awesome and the single and all that other stuff, but his double that he hit was a line drive into left field the other way as Elly was hitting left-handed. I think the more that we see these balanced at-bats from everybody in the lineup, it's just going to be so much harder to pitch to these guys. And we'll talk about later on in the show how they can approach Nathan Eovaldi today, because they faced a guy in Kumar Rocker who is still trying to get his major league legs under him. He got a lot of power. The Reds were able to counter that power with their power. Now they're going up against a guy who's off speed and junk pitches. That's where he makes his bread and butter. So it's a little bit of a different style, but you love to see it. I mean, when you get somebody like Kumar Rocker on the mound where he's not established just yet, they didn't let him get comfortable at all. And even on top of the fact that he gives up 6 runs in the first 2 innings, he was throwing pitch after pitch after pitch after pitch. If he had a clean third, he wasn't going to come back out for the 4th.
We heard from Terry Francona in the postgame that pregame, the Reds were in the cages underneath on the machine and had turned the velocity way up. They were practicing getting used to the velocity, and it seems to really have paid off. I did want to make mention, we didn't talk about it yet, but there is a guy that finally broke through. Spencer Steer finally delivers a hit from the designated hitter.
2 RBIs on that hit too,
Finally delivers, so I'm hopeful that's a sign of things to come, that he's starting to get his timing. We've been speculating, right? Is it the shoulder, or is it the fact that he's had up to this point, before today's game, 14 at-bats total from spring through the beginning of the season. So which is it? We don't know. I hope that this is him showing signs of getting his bat speed up, getting comfortable, getting around on the ball, and starting to deliver from that designated hitter spot.
The more that we see him make that kind of a contact, because again, it was a pitch that was low in the zone. He was able to get around on it and pull it. It wasn't a situation where it was just off the end of the bat and it found a space. Like, it was good contact. I want to see more of that from him, because like we've mentioned, I think part of the reason that we speculated on whether or not he needs to hit the IL is simply because he hasn't done much. And that was good to see, even though it was a bit of a add-on situation and it wasn't like a clutch moment. You still need those, and you still need to see them fall if you're him. Now he's got 1 hit. He can start building on that here tonight. But I know this, Steve, it was nice to see the Reds lineup break out. But Elly and the lineup weren't the only reason that the Reds won, because Brady Singer was even better than advertised. It's March Madness. It's MLB. It's FanDuel season. Head on over to FanDuel.com right now. New users, if you win your first $5 bet, you get $200 in bonus bets. And got a great $5 bet for you to place. It's the Elly Parlay. I've been forgetting about that. It hit yesterday. Thanks. Shout out to our buddy Ken for pointing that out. But the Elly Parlay is 2+ total bases, 1+ stolen base, 1+ run scored, usually hits at around +400, can fluctuate a little bit. So check that out each and every day. Honestly, if it hits 40% of the time, you're going to be in the plus money. Check it out over at FanDuel.com. Download the app and head over to the website. Again, new users, your first $5 win gets you $200 in bonus bets. FanDuel is the official sports book of Locked On. Thank you for making Locked On Reds your first listen, your second listen, however many listens you check out Locked On Reds each and every day. Appreciate you and appreciate your everydayers out there. Got to meet a few more at the ballpark. We got Brandon, we got Tyler. Appreciate you guys coming up and saying hi.
We all froze to death together.
We all froze to death together, but we watched the Reds go crazy, and we love to see that. We also love to see the fact that Brady Singer debuted. And I said, and I've said this multiple times now, everydayers will know, that Brady Singer kind of reminds me a little bit, less breaking stuff, but also more on the control side, maybe a little bit more strikeout ability than Bronson Arroyo. I undersold him because obviously he's Tom Seaver, because him and Tom Seaver are the only two guys ever in their first game as a Red to throw 7+ shutout innings of baseball. Absolute dominance on Monday.
What an incredible line. 7 innings pitched, 1 hit allowed, 1 walk, and 8 strikeouts. When we talked about this trade, and I said this as recently as the live show yesterday, Brady Singer was brought in here to be a stabilizing force in this rotation. He was brought in to be the veteran experience, the guy that was going out there, making his 30 starts and kind of leading by example, while the young guys, the Hunter Greens, the Nick Lodolos, went out there and threw the gas and were still learning how to be the aces, right? Yeah. Brady Singer was here to stabilize things. He clearly has done that. What a tremendous first start. Is this going to be him every single time out? I don't know, but I'll take it. He had a nice, easy motion. It didn't look like he was overthrowing at all. And despite the weather conditions, he's out there in short sleeves and looking like he's as comfortable as can be. I was impressed. This was a tremendous start, a tremendous way for him to introduce himself really to Reds country.
Yeah, I noticed that during pregame warmups that he was the only Reds player on the field that wasn't wearing long sleeves or some sort of neck gaiter or whatever it was. Like, he looked like he was just as comfortable in his normal uniform, even though it was 40 degrees outside. And shout out to some of that. We saw some fans only wearing shorts too. Like,
crazy talk.
I don't know what's going on. I had long johns on, but no, Brady Singer had a great night. He had more swings and misses than he had balls in play against him. That's the kind of night that as any pitcher dreams of. But the thing that got me, and something I looked at Baseball Savant to check out on this, more groundouts than flyouts. He had 5 groundouts to 4 flyouts. We talked about this a lot, and this is his profile throughout his career, is that he relies on the fly ball, and he could do that at Kauffman Stadium. You can't do that at Great American, and he was at least getting away from it. I would like to see a bigger skew toward the ground balls, but ultimately even the flyouts that he was getting were pretty weak contact pop-ups to shallow outfield, sometimes keeping it on the infield.
And that might be the most impressive thing, because this Texas team is talented.
They can hit
the ball. Yeah. And Brady Singer effectively just shut them down.
Yep.
And no matter what they tried to do, they just simply couldn't deal with him. The runs they scored came much later and pretty much like, we call it garbage time, right? Yeah. Like there's nobody was trying real hard at that point. Everybody just wanted to go home. So watching him do that, I think that's going to have that effect on the other guys in this rotation, Jeff, where they start to try and one-up each other. And they all feed off of each other. And we've heard the other starting pitchers talk about this. So with this kind of performance, I think that's going to help elevate everybody else's games as well as we continue to work our way through this first month of the season.
And I think it's worth reiterating. You kind of mentioned this a little bit, but the motion and just the eye test of watching Brady Singer, he doesn't have the kind of herky-jerky like pitching motion that you're like, it seems gimmicky, and maybe he's messing with some guys and you just found the right lineup at the wrong time. he has a very normal delivery, a very repeatable delivery, something that they can expect for 30 starts this season. I also like this because, we talked a little bit about this throughout the offseason and through spring training, especially, that they've been working on a cut fastball. And his first one that he threw, he throws his sinker at around 93. His first cut fastball that he threw, I remember the radar gun said 88. And I'm like, that seems like a bit of a stiff difference. I'm wrong. His average cut fastball velocity for tonight's game was 4.6 miles an hour faster than he threw it last year. So we're looking at a guy that really has honed in this pitch, and he only threw it just a handful of times. But if you can take that, which obviously has a very different break plane, I said plane and path.
Easy. That's easy for you to say.
Plane and path at the same time. But yes, different break path than his sinking fastball. He's going to be able to mess with a lot of hitters and not have to use a whole lot of junk to do it.
I said yesterday the key for him was to keep guys off balance, and he clearly was able to use that to keep guys off balance last night out at Great American Ballpark. I mentioned, though, that runs did come. Yep. Singer got through the seventh inning. You and I had talked about, do they let him come out for the eighth? I think they should probably shut him down. Yes. They did at that point. He was up at 90 pitches, right? Yeah. So I think that Terry Francona hit the sweet spot in letting him finish the seventh inning. Really, there was no stirring at all in the Reds dugout. You and I were talking about the fact that, I wonder if they've got somebody down there in the bullpen already or not. We couldn't see any movement from where we were sitting, but I like what Francona did here. Brady Singer was cooking, and he left him alone, and I thought it was great. But then he goes to Sam Moll. And, I ask you, as this was developing in front of us, are we concerned? Are we worried? I would have to think that in those weather conditions, having sat down there in that bullpen for 8 innings or 7 innings, that it was really hard to get the adrenaline going in a 14-run ball game to come in and pitch. But Sam Moll did not look sharp at all.
No, he did not. His velocity got there toward the end of his outing, which was almost 30 pitches. I think it was like 28 pitches,
something like that.
And I think part of that was, all right, we're throwing you out here. Remember, we talked about that toward the end of spring training, they still weren't quite happy with his conditioning. Mm-hmm. This felt like another opportunity for him to just go out there and get his velo up, get going into the season, because there really wasn't anybody that was warming up toward the end of the inning. Even though he was giving up base runners, he was giving up runs, he was throwing a lot of pitches. Kind of felt like at that point, you're really starting to wonder if they're going to bring somebody in to finish the inning if he loses the next guy. He was able to get out of it, albeit not a great line, but not a line that I'm like, oh boy, I don't think Sam Moll's
he gave up a run, but that really did feel like an inning where it was like, if you want to come back in this dugout, you get that third out, because we're not coming to get you.
Work on it, man. Work on it.
And so, he gives up the one run. There was a wild pitch involved. The runners were able to move up. We get to the 9th inning, and they bring in Brent Suter. And this is his second day in a row pitching. I wonder if that had an impact on what was going on. And again, the weather conditions and sitting down there. And it was now a 13-run ball game at this point. He didn't look good either. And you watch his velocities. There was one time he registering 70 on the radar gun, and I at one point had joked that the Rangers had already had a position player pitching, and I think the outfielder was throwing harder than Brett was, but
he wasn't. But no, I get it, because in tough, close, clutch situations, to bring in Brent Suter, I have a hard time thinking, and I know that his delivery is a lot different. It's a lot faster. He gets more extension. So the velocity probably plays up a little bit, but how much do you play up from 83, from 85? That's what his fastball sits at. And then his slider and his changeup are in the 70s. He's got to be a guy that comes in after Hunter Green. He's got to be a guy that comes in after a lot of flames just been thrown plateward, and they got to come in and see if they can just change the eye level and change the bat speed of the guys at the plate. I don't know that I'm worried about him, but I wonder where the strategy is playing him, because I used to think guy can pitch 2 innings. I don't want to see him for more than like 4 or 5 hitters.
I think one of the big concerns is that this bullpen is going to have outings like this, and nobody's really sold on who they are. I'm not willing to look at this game, a blowout game in super cold temperatures. I'm not willing to look at this game and let it really inform my decision. I don't think it's representative of what you can expect from these guys in a normal situation. So I'm going to continue to monitor. I like that it was Sam Moll again, to your point, that they didn't think he was in shape, wasn't quite ready. I mean, there was even some speculation if he was going to make the team or not, or if he was going to have to hang back and stretch out and get a little more in shape. So I like that he was out there. I like that he threw the 25 to 30 pitches, and hopefully he's back in a couple days looking a little more sharp. And with Brent, I think that you're right. He's got to come after the flamethrowers. I'm willing to just kind of dismiss how that looked in the 8th and 9th inning. Everybody was just, counting the seconds till we could get to the heater in the car. So, and I'm pretty sure the players.
Sam walked the first guy, and all of us were like, "Oh, come on."
Yeah. All right, Jeff. All that being said, it was a fun night to be out in the ballpark. It was a fun night to watch the Reds lineup do their thing. And coming up, we're going to be talking about what that lineup needs to do against Nathan Eovaldi to keep the momentum going. We've got that coming up next. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking to get an extra edge, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like dedicated phone lines, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, you can use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. If you can't watch us on YouTube, you can listen to us on your favorite podcasting app. We're pretty much on all of them. Make sure you subscribe today. Take us with you on the road, in the car, to the gym, at work, wherever you need to get your Reds baseball fix. We will be there for you. All right, Jeff, the Reds are going to face Nathan Eovaldi. And when I hear that name, I'm instantly taken back to that World Series classic of a game that went something like 18 innings with Eovaldi pitching 8 or 9 innings of relief out of the bullpen for the Red Sox. So, he's no longer really that guy. He throws a lot of junk. He throws a lot of pitches that he wants you to chase. So I think the name of the game for the Reds lineup today is going to be patience.
Yes, they've got to lay off the junk. His first start, he gave up most of his hits with his fastball. Gave up a couple of hits, I think, on the slider, but it was mostly the fastball that was kind of hurting him, and it was the split finger and the curveball that he got all of his outs with. I didn't think he had a couple with the fastball, but still is to the point that the Reds almost need to approach this similarly. They jumped all over Kumar Rocker's fastball, similar velocity, a little bit more than what they'll see from Nathan Eovaldi, but that's what they've got to kind of focus in on this with. And kind of like you said, Nathan Eovaldi, different pitcher altogether, where Kumar Rocker's still establishing himself as a major league pitcher. Nathan Eovaldi's been there. He's done that. He can kind of draw on his experience when it comes to certain things like that. So the Reds are going to need to approach the at-bats carefully and force him to throw a lot of pitches, but I think they can do that because we've seen them do that already this year.
Yeah, I think for sure the top third of this lineup. Yes. We've seen patience from TJ Friedl, we've seen patience from Matt McLain, and we've seen patience from Elly De La Cruz, and patience that have provided for really, really good at-bats. Yeah. So I think for those guys, they can set the table. The key is going to be for the guys that come next. Is it going to be Lux batting fourth? If Francona sticks with that, is he going to be able to lay back and monitor? What are these outfielders going to do that have been trying to kind of break through? And will we see Spencer Steer? Will he be back in the lineup for another day at the designated hitter position? Still trying to really get his timing and get things going. I worry about him more even than some of the others, just to be able to lay back and be patient when he's really trying to prove that he's a valuable piece of this lineup.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because Nathan Eovaldi has a great mix when it comes to the difference between his fastball and his curveball. His fastball averages around 94. His curveball averages around 77. I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you cut almost 20 miles an hour off of one pitch and you're able to throw both of them super effectively. I'm going to be watching closely to see if that's something he can tunnel, because that's what's going to that's what would shut down any lineup, not just the Reds. I mean, if Nathan Eovaldi can take a 94-mile-an-hour fastball and a 77-mile-an-hour curveball, release them at the same point, make them look similar, and then the curveball just falls off the table, nobody's hitting that, let alone Elly De La Cruz. So how does Elly De La Cruz approach that curveball, and can he take advantage of the fastball earlier on in counts? And then conversely, I think when I'm looking at Carson Spires tonight, I think the Rangers lineup is just super dangerous, man. And I thought that when it came to Brady Singer. I kind of figured Brady Singer would allow 3 or 4 runs. Obviously undersold that. But I still think that Carson Spires has a little bit of a dangerous spot here. I'm hoping for 5 innings and 2 or 3 runs allowed, because I think that'll keep the Reds in the ball game. I think that's going to be tough, though.
I don't think Carson Spires has it in him to overpower this lineup or to silence this lineup like Brady Singer did last night. I'd be
shocked if he gets more than 2 strikeouts.
I agreed. So for me, we find ourselves back in that situation of we need the Reds defense to be good. We need error-free baseball. We need these guys to do what they're supposed to do and play mistake-free as much as possible. They can't give the extra outs. They can't give the extra base runners. They really are going to have to dig in and help Carson get through this lineup.
I feel like the deeper that he gets into counts, the more at risk he's going to be, especially with a guy like Adolis Garcia. We saw him lace that double off of Brady Singer early on. I was a little bit worried about that based on that double, but then that never came back up. That was the one fly ball that Brady Singer gave up that was absolutely crushed, and it just so happened to stay in the ballpark. But Garcia is a guy that I feel like could get up on Carson Spires. But I think it's all about this lineup and how they can attack Nathan Eovaldi, because I think that the Reds are going to give up runs in this game. It's how many runs do they get back.
And I think they can limit the runs. I don't want to say that I feel like Carson Spires is going to give up 10 runs to this Rangers lineup, but he's going to have to be smart and strategic, pitch to weak contact, not let barrels get around on him, and then the defense has to have his back. And if that's how it plays out, the Reds will be competing in game 2 and get this series nailed down already.
And the good news is the A squad and the bullpen is ready to go, because with Brady Singer throwing 7 innings and the other 2 innings being eaten up by a couple of guys that I wouldn't have expected to pitch in this game anyway, you've got Santillan, you've got Pagan, you've got Rogers, you've got those guys that you can call on. You've got Graham Ashcraft to bring them in a tight spot. And so 5 innings, I think, is fine. He's got to give him 5. I feel like if we're only going 4 and we're going to the bullpen in the 5th, it's going to be a bit of a problem here. But again, we kind of set this game up when we were looking at the series yesterday as to be the big question mark. They needed to bookend with wins. They did that with the first one. And if they can win this one, you might set up a sweep here with Hunter Green on the mound.
Right. Hunter Green's going to be looking for little redemption from the one that got away on opening day. So I look for big things from Hunter Green when he comes back. But anyway, that's for another day. I'm excited about what happened last night. I'm looking forward to how the Reds managed to deal with the Texas Rangers in game 2. And you're going to have everybody covered on that, because I'm going to be flying back to Hawaii.
Yeah, we're going to keep that all covered up here on the next Locked On Reds podcast, because, hey, the Reds could be going for that sweep. But that's going to do it for us here today. Thanks so much for checking out Locked On Reds, making us your first listen, being an everydayer. If you're not an everydayer, hit that subscribe button, become an everydayer. Always appreciate our everydayers for Locked On Reds. Make sure you also check out Tim Daniel in the Reds postcast after every game. He's going to have you covered immediately after the final out tonight and pretty much every game. I think there might be a game or 2 that he ends up not being there, but he's a machine, dude. He's going to be there. So make sure you check him out. By the way, if you're subscribed to Locked On Reds, you're also ready to go for the Reds postcast as well. But hey, for your next listen, check out Locked On MLB, because Sully is going to give you a daily look around the biggest stories in the league. Something tells me he might be talking about the fact that the Brewers once again gave up 1 billion runs, and this time not to a team with space bats.
Oh, isn't it fun? They're bad. They're just bad.
Love love to
Love
see
it.
that. Sorry, Chuck. Sorry. Appreciate you. But we love to see it. And that's where we're going to end today's podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. You know that what, Steve?
We'll keep you locked on Reds every single day. I think my toes are still frozen from the ballpark.
Probably got to thaw them out. I think Taco Bell's got a thing. We could probably
Let's
thaw
go.
them out of
Let's
Taco
do
Bell.
it. Let's make a run.
Yeah, that's going to happen.